Hello, everybody. Welcome in to a new year of the ASN Podcast. I'm Andre Khatchaturian. He's Jason Takhtadjian. He's back with ASN. We're excited to have him. It's a new year. It's a lot of new things are happening. Happy New Year, Jason. How are you? Welcome back to ASN.
Happy New Year to you as well. Happy New Year to everybody who's watching. Yeah, it's a new year and I'm back. I took a little bit of a break in the summer of 2025, just trying to focus on work, just also trying to just take a break from also just constantly having so many things on my plate. And I was just trying to balance work and life out. And ultimately, I also just needed a break from Armenian content and Armenian sports specifically. But during that time, I realized that I do miss the constant grind of following Armenian sports. Whenever you're out of it, you kind of start missing it, and you start being like, oh man, I wish was kind of out in fear of missing out, FOMO. And I thought about oh, was there ever an opportunity for me to do something on my own, but ultimately, I just feel like Armenian sports is so niche enough. I feel like everybody should be banding together to try to just come together and make the best sort of content that we got. Because if it isn't for the small group of people that cover Armenian sports in the varying degrees that we do, these athletes wouldn't really have that much shine.
Well, I'll be the first to tell you we missed you very much at ASN. Your hard work was deret dadar kar, as we say in Armenian.
Uh,
It was very noticeable that you were gone, and but we did well. We have two strong interns, Haik Artunian and John Gigyan. They helped a lot, but there's something to be said about someone with your experience, and we're glad to have it back. It's going to be an exciting year. There's going to be so much on the plate from the Winter Olympics coming up next month. This month we have Armenia in the futsal Euros in the Euro 2026. That's going to be exciting. And then obviously the annual events that always happen, the gymnastics championships, Europe and world, weightlifting championships, Europe and world, wrestling championships, Europe and world. Armenia always thrives in those events, as this summer we will reach the midway point between the two Olympics. So it's going to be a big year in those world events. And of course, the team sports, it'll be so interesting to see what happens with Armenia soccer this coming fall in the Nations League. They'll probably have a favorable draw with countries that they are, it'll be good tests, especially with the new coach, FINED Mikayel, to see how they do against these countries that they usually took care of in the past. Like that time when they won their Nations League group. So that's obvious. And obviously the World Cup, which Armenia won't be in it, but it'll be fun to watch. We will cover it here on ASN as well. What are you most looking forward to? I feel like we haven't even talked about UFC. There's so many storylines in the UFC with we're having a debut next month with John Paul Lebosnoyani, the whole Arman Tsarukyan saga. Edmund Shabazian wrapped up a 3-0 year in 2025. Just so much.
yeah. I agree. There is so much. I mean, for me, if I had to pick something specifically, yeah, we already have Arman Tsarukyan as someone who's a really well-established guy who is a lightweight contender in the UFC. For me, I'm not coming from a place of greed. I just feel like just overall we can do so much better when it comes to Armenian sports, especially when it comes to our impact. And I feel like Edmund Shambazian is just right there as far as breaking into like a top 15, and getting, his name to those higher ranked, fights, because he's on a 3-fight winning streak going into this year. I'd like to see him win his next couple fights and see where that goes for him. He still has, age on his side as far as the youth is concerned. And I feel like he's the next man up, but not just as far as, oh, who's going to really make a name in the UFC, because I feel like he's been around for enough time. Now it's time for him to take that next step and really start competing in fights that really matter.
I agree. I think this is that year where he can absolutely take that next step forward. A 2-0 or a 3-0 year with a couple good finishes absolutely propels him into the top 10, I think, and puts it in consideration for maybe a title shot in 27 or 28. So it's an important year for Edmund, and it's he's the times we've talked to him, he just seems so much more comfortable than when he first broke out into the UFC. So again, that age factor, coming into the UFC at such a young age, getting that rust out of the way, I think will help him in the long run. It's going to be a fantastic year, and there's also some other team sports like hockey and basketball. Women's basketball just announced they'll be competing in the FIBA small countries this summer. That'll be something to keep an eye out for. Obviously, Armenian basketball will be competing in the Eurobasket pre-qualifiers. Armenia hockey team will be competing in the World Championship in Division 4 again, hoping to get a first place finish to move to Division 3. And so again, it's going to be a jam-packed year. There's no break anymore. It's just all gas, no brakes. It's
Always something happening.
Always something
Always
happening.
something to look forward to.
A lot going on this month, and we kind of wrapped up 2025, and probably going to be what our main topic is for today is what's been going on in Europe with the World Cup of Skiing. I believe it was one of these big ski events. Had an Armenian cross-country skier, Mikayel Mikayelyan, make international headlines for covering up an Azerbaijan sponsor logo during a event, and he received a fine from the International Federation. What is it? The International Ski and Snowboard Federation. He received a fine from them, and it obviously a headline like that is going to generate waves because you're having an Armenian skier having to wear an Azerbaijan logo on their uniform, and he's like, "I'm not going to let this happen." He covered it up. He went and competed, and as a result, he received a fine. So what was your initial reaction when you saw this headline pop up on various outlets?
Well, I mean, first and foremost, I was glad he wasn't suspended. I was glad he was just fined. I'm also glad that a lot of people came to his support immediately, including, his own federation. I believe, I think you know who his name is, but he said that they were going to cover his fines completely so that the
Yes,
athlete wouldn't have
Gagik
to worry about
Sarkisian.
that. Yep, Gagik Sarkisian said that they're going to cover it so that the athlete doesn't have to worry about that. And this really just comes back down to like, okay, objectively and according to the rules, right? Yeah, he did something that merited the fine as far as obscuring an advertisement, like just at a base level. But we also know that Azerbaijan has targeted sports to make sure that they can, have their mark in the world stage through sports. And Azerbaijan and Armenia still have a lot of bad blood, and the people still have a lot of raw feelings, including a guy like Mikayel Mikayelyan. And for him, I'm glad that he took the opportunity to be like, you know what, money does not necessarily matter to me in this situation because. And the base level, this is a sponsor that I'm covering, so he's going to cover it. But he knows what he's doing. We all know what he's doing as far as making a stand and making, making a what's the word?
Sending a message.
Sending a message, essentially. Yeah, sending a message because of just the amount of sponsorship money, the amount of money that's being pumped in by a country like Azerbaijan and what they've done to the Armenian people that still, to a lot of people and around the world, they just haven't been held accountable.
So it's interesting you mentioned Azerbaijan spending a ton of money in the world of sports, and now they're doing it in skiing, in winter sports. It's very interesting.
Yeah.
They just this year in 2025, well, last year, got admission into the World Federation, International Ski and Snowboard Federation. They the Gagik Sarkisian, president of Armenia Ski Federation, when this vote was going on in May or June in the spring, to determine whether Azerbaijan would be granted membership, he pleaded to the federation, World Federation, International Federation, that Azerbaijan doesn't have any history of skiing. And he went and he did his own research and saw that there's no skiers, no coaches, no membership teams. There's no skiing in Azerbaijan. How can we grant membership to this? He didn't even make it political. He didn't talk about. He did bring up the Azerbaijan's attack on Armenia, but he said, okay, forget about that for a second. Let's just talk about the fact that skiing doesn't even exist in this country, and we're going to grant them membership, and then we're going to have them host World Cups and maybe the World Championship one day. The hypocrisy in this, and of course, at that same time, Azerbaijan's tourism board had struck a 5-year deal with the International Federation of Ski and Snowboarding to become a global sponsor. So you don't have to be a PhD student to understand how that probably led to Azerbaijan getting into the federation and being able to host these events, and having their sponsorship on uniforms and flags at events. So it's we've seen this with Formula One, we've seen this with UFC. Money talks. Azerbaijan is now venturing in an Olympic year into winter sports to kind of hopefully become a destination for the world to host events there and boost their tourism and their economy. And what was interesting to me was when Gagik Sarkisyan in his Facebook message, he said Armenia should learn from this. Armenian government doesn't fund or finance the winter sports in Armenia at all. They said they've been begging the government for funding, and they haven't been receiving anything. And we've heard this also from Stas Nazarian, who was a para skier, para athletic skier, and he says the Armenian government never really funds their programs. So he's saying Azerbaijan is funding these sports programs. They're investing in it, and it's helping their tourism. Why isn't Armenia doing that? And I agree with him. I think why Armenia could use sports to improve their winter tourism, their summer tourism, and go on a global stage, and they're just not doing it. And instead they're caught in these situations where uh, they're getting fined for covering up a logo, which I'm happy he did that, but you need to start. The government clearly doesn't care, right? They're opening doors to talk to Azerbaijan and Turkey now, so they're more than okay with it. They're probably not going to succumb to the ski federation out of all people.
No, especially not this government, but also like the other fact is that there are more events coming, and there are going to be more instances where there are going to be those jerseys with Azerbaijan on it. So what? Are you going to cover it every single time and get a fine every single time? Like that would be, pretty significant if that's the case. But also it's like, yeah, you could think about it like that because I do agree the Armenian government definitely picks and chooses what it wants to put its money towards when it comes to sports, and it's pretty clear who and what that goes towards. If you've ever been in like the main cities and you see the big banners that are sponsored by the government
Yes.
with certain athletes, but again, like it just goes to show, like, if only Armenia had the money, because in this world and in sports, unfortunately, money talks.
Yes.
If one of these mountains had just a mineral resource that gave us so much riches, we'd be able to solve so many problems. Unfortunately, that's the world we live in, and it's a little bit depressing, but yeah, that's what we
You're right. And
unfortunately gonna have
it,
to go for.
Azerbaijan obviously has a lot more funding to be able to spend on events and sports like this, but uh, Armenia has invested more in basketball. I will give them that, but it's just it's sad to see, especially for Mikayelyan, who had friends who died fighting in the Artsakh War, be forced to wear a uniform with the word
Yeah.
Azerbaijan on it. Like I don't blame him at all for covering it. I think it's very heroic that he did it. He said to Azatutun Radio that he values his dignity and honor more than the fine. And he's a true patriotic. He said, "My dignity and my homeland come first." He's a true patriot. He's a true Armenian, and he has every reason to be. Sarkisyan in his Facebook message said that when you're in the town that in the snow town where Mikhailian trains, there's several Armenian flags that are waving over the grave of the soldiers that Mikhailian knew, these people who fought and died in 2020. So it's very emotional. Um, it's very powerful for Mikhailian, and he said he might continue to do it. He doesn't care about the fine, and many benefactors have stepped up in the diaspora, saying they'll be more than happy to pitch in and pay the fine. The federation has declined those um, offers, but I mean, I think the easy fix is, why isn't it just the federation, the World Ski Federation, just give him another uniform? Azerbaijan is not the only
Yeah.
sponsor. Just give him another uniform. Just uh, call it a day. That's a good
That's what I was
compromise.
just about to say. It's almost as if you read my mind. I was just thinking about it. Like the other fix is have a different uniform with that off of it. And you know what? You shouldn't be so tone deaf and think, oh, politics and sports don't mesh. No, they always do mesh. If anything, they don't exist without the other. And those whoever put the tour on, they should know that if you're going to have a sponsor of a certain country like Azerbaijan, it's not just any country that you just randomly pick out of a hat. It's a country like Azerbaijan that might have some sort of political tie to it. Also know the competitors who are coming to the competition, how that might, resonate towards them, especially somebody like Mikhail.
Absolutely. This isn't You'll Play Yogurt. It's not like he's covering that. It's not a McDonald's ad. This is it's a country that Armenia has had issues with. I know the governments are all saying, "Oh, we're neighbors, we're peaceful now," but there's real victims here. Mikayelyan is one of them. He lost friends who were fighting against Azerbaijan during the Artsakh War, and this is a very emotional situation for him. And more power to him for standing up for what's right for him, and defending his honor and dignity and putting his homeland first. So it's just another example of Azerbaijan sports washing. They've done it in other sports, in other arenas, in other venues with F1 and even the UEFA. Did they host like a UEFA final and
Yeah.
say they do host. Yeah, say they do host the World Championship. Will Mikhail be able to participate in that? Probably not.
That too. Unless they have some workarounds of, oh, things are all fine and dandy, but like, are they really? Then I don't know. Especially when you still have a lot of people with a lot of unresolved issues on both sides of this situation, and sports, instead of it being used as a way to like bring people together, it's more so right now being used in a way to highlight these issues that still there's been no justice.
Yeah, and yeah, I think it's a very brave thing to do. He risked maybe getting disqualified or suspended, and he got a fine. They'll pay the fine. Federation's going to pay the fine, and I think he should do it again. He should keep doing it, or the federation has to adjust and give him another uniform. Um, but it'll be interesting to see what happens next. Obviously, the Winter Olympics next month. Mikhailian was the Armenian representative in cross country skiing in the previous Olympic Games in 2022. We'll see if he is the one to go this year. Nothing. I don't think anything has been announced yet for that, Jason.
Not too sure if the Winter Olympics, like if athletes have been announced yet of all of them. I
Well,
think like
there's
spots
a
have.
figure skating pair. That's the only one that Armenia. Their names are slipping me right now, but that's the only one I know that has officially qualified for the Winter Olympics.
I see. Yeah, it's still early goings, I guess. But
Karina Akapova and Nikita Rachmanin. Um, so Karina is 21 years old, and
interesting.
they will be competing in the pairs figure skating, which is different than the ice dancing event, Jason. Ice dancing and pairs figure skating are very different. They're scored differently. So the ice dancing was what Tina Garabetyan competed in 2022. I don't know much about figure skating, but I do know that.
Yeah, well, you know what? You know more than most people when it comes to figure skating.
Well, interesting. I just looked it up. Mikayel Mikayelyan was the Armenia's flag bearer at the 2022 Winter Olympics. So,
Interesting.
very interesting. Yeah, he finished 47th in a cross country ski event. In one event, the men's 30-kilometer skiathlon. And then in the 15-kilometer classical event, he finished 61st. I mean, Armenia is not nowhere near getting a medal in any of these events, but it just goes to show how far behind they are in winter sports. They've
Yeah.
never received, they've never won a medal.
Mm-hmm. We got all those mountains.
All those mountains.
All those mountains, all those opportunities, all that snow, all the opportunity to have some like world class skiers, have some world class snowboarders, everything else that you can think of under the sun and on the snow. And yeah, we got what, 6 spots, 3 men, 3 women, in 3 different sports, according to the latest update from Wikipedia.
Just
Alpine
the
skiing, cross country skiing, and figure skating.
it's just a wasted opportunity. I think even just for Armenia's economy, you could invest money into these mountainous areas, have ski resorts, and become a world-class destination, tourism destination. You only hear Armenians going to Armenia during the summer. Like, why don't they go in the winter? Because there's nothing to do there because the country hasn't invested in the infrastructure to have ski centers and snowboarding and things of that nature. Uh,
We have the
so
mountains for it. Not
the
not to
mountains are there. It's not like
like not to be a broken record, but we are literally like the mountain people. Like the mountains are there, and we should be rivaling the Alps. I know that it's not necessarily the same, but like darn, like, and I know like we're saying big things, and oh, people with like actual money are like, okay, who has the money for stuff like that? I just feel like if you build it, the people will come, especially in a world like today, in a world like today with social media. All you got to have is a really good social media plan, some really cool posts, and Armenia could become a winter destination for all of Europe.
yeah, I agree. I mean, they're actually doing it with golf. They have a nice golf course there now, and they've shout out to Jean Bekirian, a French
Jean,
Armenian golfer who's actually helped promoted that golf course quite a bit, and
yeah,
you're seeing it pop everywhere. It's just a little too obvious for me. It's like imagine we're not talking about like an African country here with no mountains. This is Armenia.
everywhere you look.
Armenia should be good in winter sports, and they just
Yeah,
aren't. And I think it starts from the top. I think they
yeah.
obviously have the athletes. Um, we need to be better. We need to be better. This isn't going to be the Olympics, but we'll see what happens. And obviously, my favorite part about what Mikayelyan did, it just put Armenia on the map again. I feel like this whole Azerbaijan situation was kind of swept under the rug for a while. Nobody was really thinking or talking about it. It was the holidays. It's been
Yeah, the
almost
only thing we heard was Henrik Mkhitaryan putting out another message, which I remember the last Christmas last year, he put out another message, and that was about it.
yeah. I mean, nothing really was coming of it. I mean, it's been maybe in October there was a lot of posts about like the 5 year anniversary of the war, but this kind of was fresh and it riled people up again, and it was good to see. So, Mikayel Mikayelyan is our athlete of the week for that. Thank you, Jason. This is good first podcast for the 2026. It's been a while. Been very happy that you're back with us. Uh, and we're gonna be the podcast will be me and you a lot of the time, but we're also going to have a lot of guests throughout the year. You'll be interviewing some guests. I'll be interviewing some guests. We're trying to make this have the most guests that we've ever had on the ASN podcast in 2026. So maybe that's every week, every couple of weeks. We have a guest lined up tomorrow. This is being recorded January 8th. Sorry to date myself, but so on January 9, I will be interviewing Dr. Capodalio. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. He
Yeah.
is the Arman Sarkyan's nutritionist, and I have some
Uh,
very important questions to ask him about whether or not he approves of Arman's recent social media diet. I don't know. I don't know, Jason. I don't think he's going to be very happy about that.
hey, as long as he gives you like the tips and tricks and like the inside scoop on like the best pasta, like that's all that I'm here for. Like I want to know what he's got to say about what is the best pasta and where can I get it.
Well, I'll ask him. I'll tell him you asked that. But I want to know what he thinks about Arman eating that mountain of dolma, or
Oh,
or all of those that giant croissant that he ate. That's not very healthy. I'm sure Dr. Capo isn't the one recommending that food to Arman.
he's probably saying just take one bite and then turn off the camera. But
Right.
that's
I'm sure he's like looking all this and he's like, "What are you doing, Arman? What are you doing?"
no, seriously.
It'll be a good interview though. We'll get some insight on a UFC fighter, behind the scenes of what they do leading up to the fight as far as your diet is concerned. So it'll be fantastic. It'll be good to have him. And Is there anyone interesting you want to talk to this month, Jason?
I gotta still plan that out. I got some, hopefully
Okay.
some interviews coming in the down the road. I've definitely made some movement with the talk show recently, interviewing the CEO of
Yeah.
Hype Fighting, Arman
A great
Martirossi.
interview. You should check that out on the Tack Show. We
Yeah,
had some snippets on ASM, but you got to watch the whole thing on the Tack Show,
appreciate that. Appreciate that.
the
But
talk
we'll
show.
have to see what happens next. I have to just kind of start expanding and seeing maybe somebody in the world of basketball. We're definitely getting definitely more through into March Madness, and it might be a timely topic to talk about some basketball. So it might
Yeah.
be somebody in the world of basketball.
There aren't really any Armenians shining in NCAA this year.
No, I
Well,
mean the only one unfortunately had an
Connor.
injury. Yeah, Connor. And if it wasn't for that injury, that would have been by far the one of the stories, period, because they're one of the best teams in
Yes,
the
they
entire
are.
country. So big up to the Cornhuskers over there. But man, yeah, Connor has definitely been the one guy. Everybody else either just hasn't played due to red shirt, or we don't know what's going on. Maybe their careers are kind of just tapering off, and they're
Stagnating.
focusing on the academics.
Yeah. Obviously, there's the college hockey guys. There are Armenian, Boston College,
It's
Steven
not easy.
Skandarian.
It's not easy, guys. Sports is not easy to break into in the professional world.
No. So there's a lot of athletes that we'll be covering. And thank you so much for joining us on the ASM podcast. We hope that you have a fantastic new year. Stay healthy, stay strong, and all of your dreams and wishes come true. And join us next time on the ASM podcast. Thank you, Jason.